Hi, this is Barb with KCC TV, and today something very spontaneous happened. I'm pretty excited about this. Through local connections, which we'll come back to here, I am now able to sit down with Dave Baker. He is a state representative based out of
Willmar. Candy, County.
Candy, Ohio County. I think I said that right.
You said Willmar.
And Candy, Ohio.
Oh, I think you did.
Is that right?
My mistake, probably, yeah.
That's all right. Well, the reason that I kind of laugh at that is because I usually introduce myself as someone from Koochiching County Community Television.
Oh.
And it's long.
It's a long one.
So anyway, now that you're totally impressed with my ability to spit out long words, so Jen Windells is your sister.
Yes.
Jen Windells is a very, very active person in our community. A gift. I see her as a gift to our community. She's so involved and so earnestly committed. And from what I understand, and now meeting you, that's really a family legacy.
Well, my sister Jen is pretty special. She's my baby sister. I'm the oldest of 5, and she wrapped up our bundle of family with a perfect girl, the only girl.
Yeah.
My sister Jennifer and her husband Steve live here in town, and they moved here after my family and I left in 1994.
Okay.
My sister has enormous passion for issues that she believes in, and when she gets behind something, she wants to get it done. And I don't know where that came from, if it was just sort of our parents did instill in us, giving back to the communities. Both my parents, my mom and dad, are both still around, live in Aiken, and they have done a lot of things when they were younger. Now they're retired. They've really kind of slowed down.
Now that they have all the time in the world.
They do, but yet they know that they've got 5 kids who love their communities, love their life, and are grateful, and we're all blessed for what we have. And Jen is a great example of that, because she inspires me. The more I talk to her, the more I get fired up about especially stuff back here in the Falls.
Yeah.
So this is still home for us.
Well, let's talk about that. You say this is still home for you.
It is.
When did you arrive in the Falls? And just kind of give me and the listeners, if you would, just a little background on what your connections are to the Falls history.
Well, I don't want to put people to sleep. So I graduated from Aiken High School in 1980 and went to a year and a half of sales and management in St. Cloud.
Okay.
While I was in Aiken, I met my current wife, Mary Paulbeck. She's got family here. Phil, Kent, and Steve live in International Falls as well. And so they bought the grocery store in the mall.
Right.
And so I came up here in 1981 and with Phil and his family, and we worked the store really, really hard. And I worked there for 10 years. In the meantime, then Mary and I kept dating. We married back in about 80, I should know this, 85. And then we had our 3 children here.
Oh,
so all of our kids were born here. Our oldest is Dan, our middle daughter is Olivia, and our youngest son is Alex.
Okay.
Alexander Baker. There's a connection there, so just in case you didn't know.
Really?
Anyway, and so Mary and I lived here, had a home on Rainy Lake, and really loved this community, and I was very involved in the chamber, the Convention and Visitors Bureau. I went to the Blandon Leadership, like you and Jen have recently done.
Yeah.
I love this community, and again, this has always felt home to me. There's some really special friends that I have here that have helped raise our kids, that have been my business colleagues, and I love planning and talking about how do we make our town better. In about 1990, I moved over to 1991, maybe moved over to run the Holiday Inn.
Okay.
I was the general manager there, and the owners there came and said, "Hey, we'd love to have you come over," and I thought that was a great opportunity, so I did that. And then shortly after that, about 2.5 years later, I was actually approached by another company outside of town, Torgerson Properties, and they actually wooed me away, and I moved out of town just looking at the bigger picture, longer term stuff, and I wanted to get into some bigger hospitality things, so I ran a large company and a large campus for another company for a number of years until I decided on my own to go out and do our own company. So now Mary and I, we own what's called Baker Hospitalities, which is located out of Willmar. It has a hotel, has a restaurant, has a Green Lake Cruises, which is a kind of a party barge, and we do a lot of business there. So over the years, the 15 years, we've had a couple of other restaurants. They've all done well, but we've always known when it's time to sell just because of our life or our demands. And so right now we've got a nice balance with a hotel, a restaurant, and a cruise line. We don't make gobs of money. We live comfortably. We're blessed with what we have. And but the Falls, when we left in 1994, has always been for me a place that I will always think of as really close to heaven. We love Rainy Lake. I love the way the community comes together when they need to up here.
Yeah.
You know, they're going through some really tough times, and I've been watching the falls ever since I left, just because I know how hard it is. So that's the connection, and I love being here today for a special reason for the court system, and love being here to talk to you about this stuff.
This is great, and we're going to talk about your meeting with the drug court today.
Yeah.
That's very powerful and very meaningful to our community as well. You were you with the Minnesota State, the Chamber of Commerce?
Yes, I was the
Okay.
incoming chair-elect
Okay.
for the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. I was on the board for about 6 years. I was also in the Minnesota Restaurant Association, so I've
Okay.
been very involved in statewide organizations. And in fact, I started the organizations on those boards when I was at the Holiday Inn here. I was on the
Okay.
State Lodging Association board, and
Okay.
that's actually where I met the boss who hired me away.
Okay.
But I love the bigger picture. I love trying to solve issues with our industry.
Yeah.
Back then, it was restaurants and hotels, and very important. Now, Minnesota Chamber was a great opportunity for me to step in. It's the largest business advocate out there in the state. They work really hard for smallest businesses like mine with 10, 20, 30 employees
Right.
up to the big corporations, but most of their memberships are the smaller members. So I got really involved in that, and I was going to be the chair-elect, and I was hadn't taken the chair position yet, and then I decided to run for a public office. And I was really worried about the state and the economy. I was worried about the tax increases that were coming, that had been done in 2013. I had never run for office before. I've never had a sign made with my name on it, never been in a parade before.
Okay.
And so the scariest thing for me was to, number one, think that I was good enough to be an elected official, and also to run against a person who also worked really hard too, but we had completely different beliefs in how to run a state. So, doing that, I ran and I won.
Okay.
Very lucky, and I'm blessed. It was a very close race, and I'm lucky, and I'm still I'm what they call a freshman.
Yeah.
I'm in my first term. And so now when I look at things on a statewide level, I can look at things a lot differently from how do we fund everything from public education, mental health, tourism, all these moving parts the state of Minnesota is involved with,
Right.
needs good, bipartisan, common sense, balanced approaches to get things done. I always, and I kind of ran on that. I think that if you have all Republicans running the state or all Democrats, it's going to be out of whack. And
Sure.
I really think that having a two-party system brings that balance, and then you have to have compromise. You have to have the ability to understand, and you got to articulate your point to get your message across. And if you don't win that argument, you have 134 colleagues down there that start choosing what makes the most sense. And I've been lucky to be on some good committees down there, have some leadership roles, and looking forward to my next session,
Right.
which starts March 8th, which will be coming up soon.
So I like how you stated that, because you make it very clear that there's a lot of work that comes into coming together to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
I also really appreciate the fact that you were the type of person that acknowledged that change needed to happen, and felt compelled to not sit on the couch and talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
but you really took ownership of your strong feelings about that. And I think anybody that runs for public office is strong and vulnerable and a little crazy, because I
Sort of,
realize
yeah.
You become a public person,
Mm-hmm.
and I think unfortunately there's a lot of us. Society kind of has a nature of only coming to you when there's an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So you take on a lot.
And you only hear from people when there's a problem. Never
Right.
thank you for doing this.
Well, and I also would imagine, and this is an assumption I'm making, that you don't often have people call you and say, "Can I help you fix this?" They say, "Fix it."
A lot of times that's the case, and a lot of times I will come back with, what's your solution?
Yeah.
And a lot of times some of the best ideas come from voters
Yeah.
that actually have a great idea that hasn't been approached before, and then I'll run it through the mill. We run it through our research folks, and yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In fact, I'm working on a bill right now that came from, I thought, a good idea. There's been a lot of talk about gas tax in Minnesota to help our roads. We're already paying a lot of money in that dedicated fund. And I
Right.
keep asking folks, well, what do you know? I mean, do you know how much tax you're paying right now when you go to a gas tank?
Right.
Do you know what
I
that is?
don't. I have no idea.
It's 28.5 cents. Every gallon you buy goes to that. Now, there's a problem with that, and I think the issue is there should be more transparency, so I'm actually just writing a little bill, not a big deal, but there should be a sticker
Sure.
on every gas dispensing unit that you have. Just by the way, 28.5 cents of every gallon you're purchasing today goes towards repairing and fixing our roads. I just think, when you go buy a hammer, when you buy something, that the sales tax is always right there, you know what you pay.
Right.
But in fuel tax, it's always kind of a hidden thing. So, people have to realize that we are collecting a lot of money already for roads, and I just think things like that, but that came from a voter, that came from a friend of mine in
Yeah.
Wilmer. Why don't we tell them that?
That's really
It's transparent, and I thought, that is a great idea. So those are the little things that I think make sense, and it just brings clarity. I think the more transparent government is, and really how things really do work well and how they really don't work well, the more you talk about it openly, the better off it'll be.
Right.
So I like that approach, but again, working across the aisle takes work, it takes relationships. You got to make sure that they can trust you. There's a lot of mistrust in some areas, in some pockets.
Yeah.
I will tell you that most people down in the House and the Senate get along great.
Right.
We can have good conversations and disputes, but afterwards we all get along and we all respect each other. And I respect everybody at the table. If they have an election certificate, boy, I'll tell you what, they have my respect, because I know how hard it was for them to work to get there.
Yeah.
And I hope that folks realize that the folks that are doing this service, we don't do it for the money, because we don't get paid a lot of money. We're away from our families a lot. Especially my new colleague here, Rob Eklund. I'm looking forward to working with Rob.
Yeah.
And I played softball with Rob when I was up here in International Falls.
All right.
And so I've met him once. We're on a working force group right now. And I can't wait to kind of just get to know him better and kind of reacquaint again. But Rob will be a great representative. And so, but it's a time away from family. And, we do a lot to come back and try to fix things that help our districts. And I can tell you that it's such an honor for me to be there, just to be elected, even if I just get this one chance.
Right.
And if I don't get a chance to go back, because the voters in my area say, well, we'll try someone else. I just know that this 2 years I'll always be part of Minnesota history.
Right.
And I think we've done some good things, and it's a real honor to be there.
Now, you are, well, I'm not sure how many reasons there were for you to come up to the Falls today. But
One was to see my sister Jen,
Yes,
and
of
her
course.
two beautiful daughters. Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And I'm just going to mention too, before I forget, that we're in the I-Falls Chamber office.
Right.
Yeah, Sean Mason was generous enough on a very last-minute phone call to accommodate
Sean is one of my
us.
best friends in the world.
And that's what she said when
Yeah.
I called her. So she was very excited and bummed out that she had something else she had to do.
Yeah.
But that's okay. We'll catch up with Sean. But you this morning had an appointment at the courthouse at the what's known around here as drug court.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if there's a longer or fancier name for it.
It's pretty much what it is.
Can you tell me a little bit about that meeting for you? And
Love to. To catch up a little bit then, so in 2011, our oldest son, Dan, passed away from addiction. He died of an accidental overdose of heroin, and his drug addiction was started by prescription pain pills. And so Mary and I and our family started the foundation for Dan.
Okay.
The Dan Baker Foundation. We do a big golf event every year at our golf course that we have in Wilmer, and where the restaurant is. And we've got a very generous community. We raise a bunch of money. And so today I was able to actually come and deliver a check to the court up here to help them support the work that they're doing up here.
Yeah.
So for me, we've done it in Candioi County has a drug court.
Yep.
We've also given money to sober homes and halfway houses that need renovations. And so our foundation is donating all of our money back to folks in recovery, folks that are trying to get their life sort of back on path, but they need a place to be safe.
Yeah.
So I was looking for a reason to come up to the Falls, and a friend of mine in Wilmer, he's a judge,
Okay.
and he said, you know what, drug courts could really use some help, Dave, if you have any thoughts of using some of your foundation dollar. And I said, that's a great idea, Judge. I gave some money there, and I also said, we're going to bring some to the Falls. Mm-hmm. We were looking for a place here in International Falls, because this is where Dan was born, this is where our children was, and this is always going to be a special place for us. And when I called my pal Dave Stewart over at Super One, and I said, Dave, called him out of the blue, and I said, where is there need up in the Falls for drug? And I just knew that he has a sense of community like no one else, and I just know that Dave was able to help direct me. He was able to kind of point me in the right direction with drug court. And so I was working with Christina Husbands, and she's the coordinator here for Lake of the Woods and International Falls and Couchiching. I said, we want to do this, and so we got the check sent out to her, and I wanted to come up and just see what they do there. And what drug court is it's an amazing specialty court. It's a real court, and it's done in a lot of the counties around the state, but not enough of them. Right. Not everyone has bought into it yet. But it's a system where the judge and parole officers and law enforcement and counselors are working with people with a disease.
Okay.
And when people understand that they don't want to be addicts, they you know, when you hear people using meth or pills or heroin or pot, they don't really want to do this. They don't have that ability to wake up in the morning and say, God, I just love being high. I love the feeling of I want to be an addict because then I know my life is being ruined and out of control.
Right.
Addiction changes who people are, and nobody really wants to do that. But when their brain tells them they can't survive without this,
Right.
they do crazy things to get high. And so what we've learned with our son Dan through the heartaches and the ups and downs is that drug addiction and mental health are very well tied together, and we need to address this thing. And it takes resources, it takes people. And I will tell you, sitting in the last couple hours with drug court and the staffing and the people that are behind the scenes talking about individuals that are really working this angle.
Yeah.
They're talking about some amazing success stories.
Yes.
That when they first met this young lady or young gentleman or older gentleman, and they're all curled up in the couch and they can hardly function, there's no way this person's going to survive. And a year later, they look amazing.
It gives me
and
goosebumps. I know.
There are many positive things about addiction. You know, unfortunately, our family doesn't have that. So we are using Dan's memory to try and help propel this message. We're not afraid to talk about this ugly disease, but it is a disease that has to be that has to put shame out there, because shame is what keeps people from talking about this.
Right.
You know, we are so proud of Dan. At the time, we weren't. You know, we were like, we couldn't talk about this. We're a pretty prominent business family in the area, and it was very hard for us to really be open about this. My gosh, now we want to be screaming from the rooftops. We want to make sure people know that this is not something that is really much different than diabetes and cancer.
Right.
And you've got to be on a plan. You've got to be on medicine. Some of that medicine is support groups. Some of that medicine is treatment. But there is programs and hope out there. And so I came up to the Falls today, and my wife Mary wanted to come up here, but we had some business issues at the very end where she couldn't make it.
Okay.
So we, met with everybody, and Chad Ledoux, the judge up here, is just a champion for this.
He is, very much so.
And Koochiching County is one of the oldest running drug courts in the state. And for that reason alone, too, this county and this system here should be applauded for their paving the way for other courts to do this. It saves taxpayers a ton of money. It helps people trying to get off of this stuff. Not everybody succeeds. You know, you kick people out sometimes, and it's an honor to be in drug court.
Yes.
There's not open seats. They don't just welcome everybody in. You've got to work your tail off to get in there.
And to stay in.
And there's different levels. So it's a great system, and I had a great conversation. My brother-in-law Phil Paulbeck was there today too with us, and my sister Jen. And it's just there's a lot of things that are important about drug addiction and what the community should and has to do to help recovering in this system, because it's complex. And so we want to actually do some more down the road. We have some great ideas. We need some sober homes here in Willmar. We need in the International Falls. We need to make sure that there's a place for people to go when they're out of treatment, and there's a place to go, because sometimes going back home is not the right place.
Right.
So anyway, there's much to talk about. We have a lot of work to do here in the Falls, but I committed our support today to them, and I just know that with my sister Jennifer, and with Phil and his family up here too, I just know that this community deserves to have the best in support for addicts and the way addiction changes people. So that's why we're here today, and we're just hopefully the very, very beginning of what will be a lot more for us to come.
Well, you know, I think there's been a lot of conversation about drug court, and I think part of it is I'm good friends with the person who was involved prior to
Lisa?
Lisa Santee.
Yeah.
So, but really, I think we can never have enough of that information coming to us. I think drug court almost needs a branding, or just sort of
a more sexy name.
Well,
just.
Well, I think they're doing the right thing about sharing as much information as they can. And I think there's some really dynamic businesses and people in this town that really work behind the scenes as well as that sort of outward side of, it's one thing to go through a program, but you also need many community resources, jobs, retraining, all kinds of things to really support.
Right.
So I really look forward to hearing more about the idea too for the accommodations for when people are getting back into the community. And
a lot of times too, there's a lot of really positive stories about addiction that we don't ever hear about. You know, folks.
Sure.
I mean, you could be in recovery. I wouldn't know that.
Right.
But you might be a person in recovery doesn't talk about it, but you're just living a very sober life now and a very clean life, healthy
Right.
life. And you don't know that. And so what a lot of communities have is they have a lot of folks out there that actually want to help. And every time there's a chemical dependency issue, or they're very attuned to it, but sometimes they don't know how to help. And I think this community does need a better core group that should be assembled, that should come and find out what are the needs of the community for this. And because of your isolation here in the Falls, there's a real need for drug recovery. It's not easy. And so we need to find that group, and I know me and my sister Jen and Phil will help be a part of those kind of things. I think that this is something that the community needs to look at hard, because when you were an addict and now you're in the road recovery, you may have a lot of resources now to your name.
Right.
You may want to have a home. You may have a home that you know of, a neighbor's house. It's a big house. That may want to help donate or help fix up, and
Right.
that could be our next sober home in town, and the only one we have, because there isn't
Right.
one right now.
Right.
Those are the kind of things we need to reach out to ask for people for help. And this community, I know this community well.
Yeah.
And this community is very generous for those kind of things. If you ask them and you share with what your vision is and why the need is there, I know this community will step forward, because it's a fabulous community that has people that want to take care of each other.
Right.
Because you know what? You don't have anything else.
Right.
You know, you can't count on anybody else but your own community and your own
Right.
self. So this
Well,
is
and
it.
you either become part of making things better, or you become a barrier to
Right.
advancing. So.
Right. So we can have folks sit on the sidelines and they can poo-poo all the folks and the moral failings that they think addicts are. I'm not buying it. You know, that is not what they want to do. It's a mental issue, and yes, they are doing behaviors that are unacceptable. They have to pay the price
And
and, the
they
consequences.
acknowledge that as
They
part
do.
of this, yes.
They have to be responsible for what they're doing, but it isn't something that they a lot of times have asked for. They sometimes are born into it,
Sure.
and their families are full of it, and there's sometimes there's so little hope for
Yeah.
these
I
kids
think
to
that's
see
key.
that, and that's a community to do that. Neighbors have to recognize this stuff, and you have to talk to law enforcement, because you know what? There's people here that love their neighbors, and yet they also don't know what to do and say.
Right.
Your police department here is amazing. They're caring. They want to help. They just don't want to lock people up. So there's places for them to go to get help and treatment. There's dollars to help with that.
Right.
So the best friend to addiction is shame and guilt, and you have to get over that feeling that you can't talk about it. So
Right.
you need to talk about it.
Well, I hope that we'll be seeing you again, and I thank you for giving me another great group to reach out to
great.
talk to. On
You know, and
KCCTV.
I just again love this community. I know there's a lot of work to be done here, and I just hope our family can continue to be a part of this community, and our work will never end. And it's for me as a legislator, I want to really focus in on the addiction side of things. We did a lot of good things with mental health last year, but boy, there's a lot more work to do, and we're looking forward to it. I'd actually would like to do a fundraiser up here with Dan's Foundation to start raising money for those kind of things we just talked about. So we have a lot of work to do, and let's start raising money, because we need to do these kinds of things to make something happen.
And we can't always depend on money from outside.
Right?
You know, there's fundraisers for things all the time. But when you can actually see that money at work in your own community, that's a powerful thing.
It is.
And that's, there's a pride and ownership to that, and seeing people come through that. So I have some ideas to talk to you about when we're off the air.
Let's do that, because I have a lot of ideas as well.
We might be here forever. What time
Barb,
do you have
thank
to
you.
go?
But yeah, and I thank you. It's a great honor to quickly get this thing put together. I
Me
didn't
too.
realize we were doing this on the way up here, and I just love talking about this stuff. It's important.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that my son's memory never goes away, and
Yeah.
this is important to us to make sure that we're helping other people that really need it. So
Well, I think it's good to have a face that we can connect names to.
that's all I got
And-
here. This is it. This
Yeah.
is not the best face, but it's all we got.
So, well, it's really nice to be sitting in front of the camera with someone who talks as much as
Yeah. Sorry.
I know it's true. I feel like I talk too
Yeah.
much, so this is great. You have just wonderful things to say. And you can tell that these are, your heart is committed to what we're talking about.
You know, I think there's a reason we lost Dan. And even though it sounds odd for me to say, we had Dan 25 wonderful years, and I look at Dan as a gift to us from God, and our faith has carried us through this. But now there's a reason, I think, that we got knocked on our butts, that we got something taken away from us that we never thought we would ever lose. And now that it's really here, and it's been 5 years, I think we just feel like God is saying there's bigger things for you, Dave and Mary, and Alex and Olivia, and they're all becoming very involved in our foundation. My daughter, who lives in San Francisco now, has just had a awakening, and she wants to be a mental health counselor now, and
Okay.
she wants to come back, and she's going to go to Hazelton at the master's school. She's going to go there for a year. She's going to be a counselor. I mean, she's an advertising agent now. She's very successful in San Francisco. She's done with that. She wants to come home. Hope her boss doesn't hear this, but I mean, anyway, she's ready to come home
This is
to
a big
Minnesota.
station.
It is. I hope it will be. We are so excited that our family is more engaged because we really do think there's work to be done, and there's a reason that they lost their brother, we lost their son, and we are being asked, now what? And I think this is the kind of thing that we just feel a calling, and so I think this is our calling, and we think of Dan every day, and we just think that this is him kind of working through weird ways, and we hope, and we know he's proud of us to do what we're doing, and so this is what we're doing.
That's a really amazing energy to carry into your life's work.
That's Dan. He's a pretty special kid. I wish more people would have met Dan. A lot of people here in the Falls knew Dan and love Dan, and they tell us that when we see him, and so and we love talking about Dan. So he's a great young man, and we just miss him to death, and we are going to do some really amazing work with his name all over it.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to finding a way for that to happen in our community.
I think we will.
And are you open if anyone needs to reach you? Are you okay with sharing contact
Absolutely, I
information?
am.
Okay.
First of all, the danbakerfoundation.org is a website that is set up. You can communicate with us. You can actually see where our dollars have been spent over the last 4 or 5 years. We want to know everything. Everything is out there.
Yep.
And talks about our story of our Dan. What he loved to do. He loves to golf, and that's why we do a golf event. Might be kind of fun to do one up here at the Falls Country Club. And so that's there, but I can always be reached on my cell phone, 320-894-5774. Call me anytime. I'm a legislator, so I also have an office in St. Paul. You can go to the rep.dave.baker@house.mn.
And we'll have all that on the slide so people
there's easy ways to get a hold of me, and I'm always looking for stories, and if people even just say they want to reach out and help. Mary and I call people, and we visit with people one-on-one just if they're struggling. Just to tell them what it's like. You want to talk about what it's like to lose a child, or you want to talk about what's it like to try to hold a family together and a marriage together because one of them is using and they're not being honest. Well, we'll talk about it. We get in their face. We get right into it because there's just no other way to kind of communicate. You can't really, be sometimes the nicey when it comes to addiction because the person that's addicted doesn't hear you a different way, and they
the
need
filter's
to hear.
different.
Yeah, it's just we've learned that, and so I'd love people if they want to reach out to us through that way. So we're here to help, and we're here to learn and understand. But our mission is early, and we have a life work ahead of us to help others.
Well, I think Koochiching County is very lucky that we were a spot on your path.
Yeah.
And
I think we are just as lucky too.
So this is, I think this was meant to be as well because it came together very quickly.
What's also as cool is my sister Jen is here, and with her passion to solving problems and making communities better, she will be, in my opinion, without a doubt, Dan's champion and aunt up here that will do a lot of great things. So. Jennifer, we've got a work cut out for us here, and I know we're going to do some great things together.
She's got good people.
She's got amazing people around her, too.
Because that's who she is.
And she knows you, Barb, and I mean, you guys are good friends now, so here we go.
We are, good
You're
things.
on the team.
All right. Well, again, Dave Baker, thank you so much for finding time for us.
You bet.
And kudos again to Sean for giving us the keys.
Thank you, Sean.
Not
Appreciate
the keys,
it very much.
But Pete Schultz, of course,
great.
allowed us to come in, someone that you've known for years.
I know Pete very well, too, so just great to be here. Thanks, Barb, for this interview. It's really been great. Thank
really
you
fun,
very much.
And
yes.
we'll catch up.